Greenwood, Greenwood, Greenwood. We are back and better than ever. It's a beautiful day outside to talk sports, and as always, I am master of my abilities. My name is Johnathan Graves, and I'm sports editor and chief of Greenwood Today Sports. And I'm joined in studio, as always, by Carolina Spikes, South Carolina wearing Mark Davis.
That's right.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm good today. Thank you.
How was your weekend?
Weekend was okay. Had a golf tournament, to raise money for our Carolina Spikes select baseball team, and we did okay. We'll talk about that a little later.
Of course, you know how the rundown goes, folks. We got the high school baseball, softball playoffs starting here pretty soon. We're going to go back and take a look at some of the games from the past week, though. Before we jump into those playoff brackets, we also got a little bit of professional news, sports news. NBA playoffs are still going on. NFL draft was this past Saturday and Sunday. And also we're going to throw in some college news there. Coach Shell Dula had his appreciation dinner on Saturday. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And like he was talking about, the golf tournament, the Spikes golf tournament. And as always, we're going to throw in some local announcements. But first, let's get to those games from last week. And let's start with the softball. We had a huge game in that Region 2A. It was against Abbeville and Crescent. It was actually to determine who would be the #1 seed coming out of that region. They finished the season tied in the standings for that region, so they were co-champs for the regular season. But they had to play a game to decide who was going to be that #1 seed in the playoffs, like I said. And Crescent ended up coming away with that win. And a little birdie told me that Crescent had actually been scouting Heather Ritchie with an old granny, a grandma. Somebody's grandma was going to the games and scouting Heather Ritchie, telling the Crescent Tigers that she loved to pitch on the outside. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I got to get more info on that.
We need to find this granny.
I want to find that granny because I'm sure she knows more about this sport than I do. And I'm sure she knows more about the Panthers than anybody else does right now. Obviously, the Crescent Tigers got to Ritchie in that last start. They hit her around pretty good, 6-0.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think about that?
I think that was a good move. Sending a granny to scout out a team other than a coach. Nobody ever expected it, and it looked like she knew what she was talking about coming back when Crescent beats them 6-0.
Well, hopefully that granny got her payday or a pie or something, a sweet potato pie or something for her efforts. But anyway, moving on. Like I said, Crescent has made the playoffs. Abbeville's still going to get a home game in the playoffs. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Moving on, we had 96 versus Dixie. It was another region game for their Region 1A. And Dixie ended up taking that game really because of 96 costly errors in the infield. Not going to mention any names, but the second baseman was horrible. Like I said, no names though. The whole infield was terrible. Second base just stood out in my mind for some reason on this Tuesday morning. Her plays just stand out in my mind for some reason. But Dixie ended up taking that win. I think her name is Kat Mulzer. She pitched a heck of a game. Went 7 strong innings, struck out about 12 Wildcat batters. Dixie goes ahead and takes that region. And then 96 follows that up the next night. You think they're going to come back, have the greatest game of their life, put forth the effort, make sure that they cut down on the errors. They lose to Emerald, the winless team of the season. Emerald gets the first win on the season. Like I said, 96 dropped that game 3-1. They were at home. They still lost to Emerald. Mark, I'm not sure what to say about the Wildcats right now. They're on a 4-game losing streak because they just lost to Newberry last night, 12-2. Wildcats are on a 4-game losing streak going into playoffs. What can they do to turn it around?
I think it looks like they need to take a lot of fielding practice.
Yeah.
So if they can do that and just probably pound balls at them until they start learning how to catch them. Once they do, they need to take their defense and their bats to the playoffs because it's going to be whole other ball game. Yeah,
hopefully they can turn it up a little bit in the playoffs here. Starting on Thursday. Moving on to some high school baseball news from this past week. We had Emerald taking Abbeville out and locking down that playoff spot in that region. Mark, talk to me a little bit about what the Vikings are doing well here heading into the home stretch of the season.
Looks like to me they were streaky. They were cold with the bats for a while, then the bats started picking up just enough, it seemed like, to help their good pitching out.
Yeah.
And the bats did carry them into the playoffs in this situation. So whatever Coach Moss has got them doing there at the end of the year to pick the bats up, and I guess Coach Miller's got the pitching in the right order, and it looks like with those two, they're going to take off, and hopefully they'll do well in the playoffs.
They followed that up I think it was the next night with a strong victory over Strong Thurman, another home win at Viking Park. It was a 4-3 score. I think you were at that game.
Yeah, I did watch that game. Just went out to see what they were doing against really a game that didn't matter, and it was tight all the way through, 3-3 until the bottom of the seventh. And freshman John Mulkey got up to the plate and hit a shot to right field, landed right in front of the right fielder, and that was the game-winning hit right there.
Greenwood, moving on to the Greenwood Eagles, they had a big win in their region against T.L. Hanna. I was at that game, and 10-4 score. And like I was saying, that really helped Greenwood get into the playoffs that night, because if they don't win that game, if they don't win that game, they don't make the playoffs. So Brooks Hall, the pitcher, didn't pitch that night for the T.L. Hanna. Greenwood went ahead and took that score 10-4. Christian Powell hit a home run in that game. And they also got some clutch hits from Davis Barrett and Tsuku.
Yeah.
I think that's his name. So they had a pretty good affair right there. Moving on, Abbeville, they lost the game last night to BHP. That was the last regular season game for them. Talk to me a little bit about what the Panthers have to look forward to going into the future.
Well, it seems like they got a lot to look forward to, a lot of practice. They need to learn. I think they're young, like we said before, but it's just seems like they give up on themselves about halfway through the season. It's like they couldn't do it anymore, and they need to learn how to hit the ball better and make sure they get their pitching right. I mean, if you can hit, you got one stud pitcher in Region 2, 2A, you'll be fine. It'll carry you a long way, but they need to get a young guy and nail him down and get at least one good ace in there and pick up the bats a little bit.
Well, moving on, we're going to move on to the playoffs right now, and like I said, we don't actually know what the brackets are in some of these games, but the games we do know is that in baseball, Southside Christian is going to take on the 96 Wildcats. That's going to be at 96. That's going to be in baseball, like I was saying. Mark, how far are you looking for the Wildcats to get in the playoffs this year?
Looks like to me, I'm putting the Wildcats into Upstate. I think they got what it takes. Like I said before, 3 good pitchers, and their bats are where they need to be. And I think you'll see them in the Upstate.
And also we have the Emerald Vikings. They're going to take on Chesney. They're going to Chesney. What are you seeing from the Vikings?
Yeah, not real familiar with Chesney and what they got to handle, but either way, if the Vikings lose this game, I think they face Eau Claire, which shouldn't be a problem at all. And I see the Vikings going 3 games at least.
Greenwood at Bowling Springs. The Eagles are going to Bowling Springs for the first round of the playoffs. What are you seeing out of them?
If I'm not mistaken, Bowling Springs was champions last year. So it might be a tough game for Greenwood. Greenwood's got to not make errors in the field, and they got to have good pitching and at least spray the ball around and score about 5 runs or so.
Warsho's Hornets going to Blacksburg. It's another baseball game, high school. First round of the playoffs. What are you seeing out of the Hornets?
Hornets hadn't seen anything around Blacksburg. Blacksburg's usually pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's a toss-up right now.
Before we move to the softball, high school softball playoffs, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Brought to you by PHG.
State-of-the-art technology, incredible staff, huge cost savings, beautiful atmosphere. The Diagnostic and Imaging Center at Tower Point. We have the world's #1 ranked MRI scanner, and we also offer CT scan, X-ray, ultrasound, nuclear medicine, and much more. The Diagnostic and Imaging Center is the most affordable in the area. We offer same-day or next-day appointments and fast and efficient test results. The Diagnostic and Imaging Center at Tower Point in Greenwood.